Today, we have a great workshop plan for you where we're going to be focusing on our new NITRO AI features. So a lot of interesting things to cover. So I'll hand things over to James in just a moment, but before we dive into it, I just wanted to cover a couple of housekeeping items. So first of all, we're going to keep this high level today. I'll give you just a little bit of a taste of what some of the features are, but if you do want to dive in more one-on-one, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always here to help. Also, feel free to ask questions. We love to hear from you, love to get your questions, and we want to make sure that you're getting everything you can out of the AI features. And lastly, this will be recorded. So if you want to reference this later, we'll be uploading it to our YouTube channel as well as to crowcanyon.help. So you can always reference it there. No need to feverishly take down notes or anything. You'll have full access to the recording. So with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and hand things off to James. James, what do you have for us today?
Awesome, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so just wanted to highlight some of the features we've been working on in our Nitro help desk specifically, but also in Nitro in general, just some different things that we have available now in the AI world. Of course, that's what it's been the big news for the last 3 years or so with ChatGPT and OpenAI coming out with all their stuff. But we continue to look at what Microsoft is doing, how they're offering the open AI tool set to developers, and we're using that in our scenarios and kind of using it for specific scenarios in Nitro. So not just go over some of those specific scenarios. There's things that are kind of more targeted towards help desk and kind of more targeted towards specific use cases of the AI. So we'll go ahead and take my ridiculously out-of-date photo off the screen and go over to a demo. Just go straight into it, because we want that's what you want to see. You just want to come in here and see the stuff, right? So yeah, so to start, there's just kind of give a high-level overview of what we have available. There's the Copilot. We've kind of developed our own version of the Copilot in here, which is using it could be a documents list, or it could be it could be a KB list. We're using it in the context of Nitro Help Desk and a KB list, and that helps to drive answers and grounds the responses really in a way that a lot of just the general Copilot, Microsoft Copilot doesn't necessarily do. And I know Microsoft Copilot uses your information, but it's across your whole your whole system, and basically what you have access to, right? So you have access to all this, all your emails, all your Teams chats. I have found that that Copilot, it's good, but it's really too broad and too general. So we've created our own Copilot that's a little more targeted and can ground itself in information that you want to ground it in. Like, you can control what that is. So we'll kind of start. We'll start with some of the other things we have, kind of more specific to the help desk, but it's something you can actually add to any Nitro form that you might have available. And what it's looking at, here, I'll pull open a ticket form so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. There's a couple buttons we've added into our Nitro form toolset where you can add it into your form and put it at the top. And these are going to be AI summary and AI assistance. So these are going to run the information from the specific ticket through the AI and represent a response or a summarization of what's going on. So for instance, if I click AI summary, it's going to run through the process and look at, lay it out, like what's the issue, what steps have been taken, what's the outcome, pending actions, and just a disclaimer that may be incorrect. But this is essentially taking the information from this specific ticket and putting up here as a summary. So this would be useful for a number of scenarios where you might want to summarize the information, especially around help desk, but maybe some other ticket types as well, or other types of things you're tracking in the system. You might want to get a good summary of what's going on, what's been done. So it's using basically feeding all the fields that we have in here. If there's anything in the work log, we could put that in there. You can see there's also an AI work log for, we have an auto response feature as well. But essentially it's taking the information from the ticket and generating a response. Now, if you do AI assistance, this is going to help generate potentially a response to the end user. But again, it's grounding itself in the information specific to this ticket, but also specific to the knowledge base that you point it to. So there's a knowledge base that you probably have in your system, and that is, this AI is using that information both from the ticket and from the knowledge base to generate a response. And you can see here's the response it's generating. You can review it to see if it's what you want to send to the user, and then you can copy that to your clipboard and open up your Outlook and send it off that way. Or another way you can do it, in our send email button, we have a similar generate response button here, generate AI mail. So this is going to kind of do the same thing that we just saw, where it's going to open up a screen where you can see maybe a little more detail of what the response should be, and you can run that. If you don't like this response, you could copy it, put it somewhere, and then run it again to see if it gets something a little different. Because with AI, you never quite know what you're going to get. Sometimes you ask it the same question 2 or 3 times, and you get 2 or 3 different answers. But yeah, you can copy that to clipboard. The other option was to replace the body. So if you wanted to generate it again, we can go ahead and replace the body, or you can append the body. I'll do that. And what that does is it takes that response and puts it in here. And you see it's slightly different than what we got before. So if I run that again, it might give, so it gives you a different response, maybe a little less information. So kind of hit or miss on what you get out of it sometimes. But the important point is that it is grounding itself in the data that you give it access to, rather than like broadly the whole system, or broadly what the individual logged in user has access to. So a couple things there for that. Another thing you'll notice on here, I'm just going to X out of that one, is this requester sentiment. So this is another kind of getting away from the Gen AI piece of things. It's using the context of the email that comes in, or whatever gets sent in the body of a description or body of an email. It's going to understand if the person is frustrated, neutral, if they're okay, happy, whatever it might be. It's going to populate this indicator of what the sentiment is for that person, and that can drive that. You could use that to drive a number of things, like what the priority is, what the who it goes to, perhaps, things like that. It does used to, I thought it told me like what. Used to tell me why it chose that, but for some reason that eye is not working right now. Not sure what's going on with that, but it should tell me why it's choosing frustrated, because the person used like verbiage like as soon as possible. Like that's going to indicate to the AI that the person is frustrated, and that's what's going to end up populated here. Now that could change throughout the course of the ticket, and that is another piece of it where you can see, as you build out the work log, as you have back and forth communication, it could go from neutral to frustrated if someone is not getting the responses that they want, or it's just simply a persistent issue that's hard to resolve. So there could be a number of reasons for that, but it's going to rerun that and update that analysis as things go through, the process. But in addition to that, what it can also do is, set the sentiment, but it'll also auto categorize and auto set the issue type. And so that is, again, coming from kind of non-gen AI using kind of regular AI. Well, a lot of that's coming from is how you describe your category and issue type. So the AI is looking at the descriptions that you have in place for your categories and issue types, and determining from there which category and which issue type might be most appropriate for that particular issue that's coming in, right? So if I open up calendar, you can see there's a description here. We ship these out of the box with the help desk now, and but also if you have your own categories, you can put in your own descriptor. If you intend to use that, I certainly recommend putting a description in there so that it knows AI has a fighting chance of picking the right one. Otherwise, you're kind of, the less information it has, the less accurate it's going to be. And I think that's pretty much true for any of these AI tools. The more specific you can be, the more directive you can be about what it's supposed to do, the better off you'll be with the responses that you get. So so it's kind of a sort of like a prompt in a sense of like saying, okay, we want to choose a calendar in these specific scenarios as when the issue comes in. And you can do the same thing with your issue types down here as well, and really just highlight, okay, this is, we already know it's a calendar issue, but we're saying it's for issues with delegating a user's calendar to another user, which I don't know if that happens anymore. It's just one of those old things we have in there. It's sort of a legacy setup, but you can see we have a description for all these, and that is that helps the AI understand like what to do. And what you're seeing over here in the embedding is really the DocGen. Is it DocGen? No, not DocGen. Sorry, document intelligence action that we have in workflows. So that would that's what puts it up into an Azure AI search index, and that's what the system is using to determine how to respond or how to handle this stuff. And then of course you have so where is it? The KB Copilot itself, which can take a couple different a couple different forms. This one is kind of made it look like this on this site. We made this HR Doc 1 look a little different. So you can see it's a little more expanded. It's got a wider frame. This one's just a web part over on this side. It's really just a web part, so you can put it on where you want. But again, it's grounding its responses in your data that you give it access to. So if you wanted to ask a question, you can have a pre-prompt there for kind of common questions, FAQ kind of things, and it'll give you, so it gives you this response. And then you can say, oh, okay, thanks, or tell me more about how to mark it as not junk. So you can kind of have a conversation with it and see what it, then it gives you more details. But you can see it's grounding itself in some information that you already have given it access to in the system, right? So you have this article that's embedded in your site. It's taking that information, it's putting it up into the database, and it is reading it. So it's what called the didn't do that actually, but it is grounding itself in information that you have in your knowledge base. So it's using that to come and generate the responses, and then you can have a conversation with it. And the other cool thing about this is that you can have your users rate the conversation, like how good was it? Maybe asked a question that you don't have a knowledge base about, and the response was terrible. And so you mark it as a 1 star, didn't provide an answer or a link to KB. You can do that. And that gets fed back into a feedback form over here, where you can see what is the how are people interacting with this, and how is the response to this. Let's see, the one that I just set come in, maybe it's in a different list, but the ideally you would see those responses over here, and you can get a better sense of like what is the Copilot doing. So it's not just like you're not just like letting it loose and hoping users get the best use out of it possible. It's actually got some grounding in both the knowledge that it has access to, but also in how it's producing its responses. And from here, you can control or generate or modify the prompt, really. So if you want to come in and modify the prompt that's going in about that Copilot, I think that is under here, configure Copilots. Yeah, Copilot settings. And this is where you can go and get your update your prompts. So if you want it to, again, you want to be as descriptive or as accurate as possible. You're giving it a role. You're in an objective. You're giving it instructions. And so, see, this is pretty comprehensive as far as what we have in here. But you could come in here and add in additional things, or like don't ever point it to this article, or ignore yada yada, or whatever it might be. But this is really what is kind of prompting the Copilot to respond in a particular way. So that gives you a good good option for responding to it and modifying what it is giving to the end users. Okay, so let's see what else we had. So that's about that. And then another feature I kind of didn't go over in detail. If I come back over here to our help desk, another thing we can do is if we edit this item, and you come over to the work log, you can actually expand notes using AI. So sent email to requester, waiting on response. So what we can do is expand those notes, and it'll take what I wrote in here and expand on that. Basically exactly what we're asking it to do. Yeah, so here you go. So expanded that response, and this is written kind of in the context or in the vein of sending it to the end user, but certainly that can be controlled through the prompt if you wanted it to just update your notes in a way that is not a response to the end user. You can do that with the prompting, but essentially it is right now the current iteration of it is crafting it as a response to the end user. So you can put in a few notes and just kind of expand on it. So you've probably seen that if you use Copilot in Outlook and in places like that, you're going to have that option to expand or make it shorter or change the tone. This one's really just expanding it, but you can control that, whether you want to change the tone or make everything professional, or if you want to make sure you're, maybe one of your technicians doesn't always have a professional response, and you want to say, okay, AI, like make sure everything is professional. So when they write their notes, you can hit the expand notes and it's going to basically rewrite what they put in place as a more professional tone kind of thing. Just as an example, you can kind of play around with the different settings and prompts and kind of see what works best for you and your scenario on that front. So in addition to these things, I mean, are also working on some other AI features. We're going to, in the context of this one ticket, you have the AI summary and the AI assistance, but we're going to expand that concept to all the tickets. And so you have information from all the tickets, and you can go and get responses and maybe help create KB articles and have like automatic KB creation to help drive it. And that can be based on previous tickets that have come in. So if you have a whole list of hundreds of tickets or so, and you don't want to go through and understandably go through and like pick out which ones are good for KB articles, in the future, not too distant future, you're going to be able to run an AI against all those tickets. And again, maybe through the prompting, have some parameters about what type of KB or how to structure that KB, and that's going to automatically generate that. And that just helps feed it back into the system and helps improve the answers. So you have this kind of iterative improvement as it goes. And that's kind of like, the thing with AI is it doesn't really know it just knows how to generate text. It doesn't really know what the tone should be or what the answer should be. It's just making its best guess based on what the information it has. So the more information it has, the better off it's going to be, and the better off it will respond to your users. So that I wanted to move over and let's see. We have. I'm sorry, Tabitha. I see your hand raised. We do have one question, but I'll open up for or Tabitha to go ahead and ask her question if she still has one. I'll unmute you and you can unmute yourself if you have a question. No, maybe not. Okay. Well, we'll come back to Tabitha if she comes wants to ask her question. We did have a question from Joe. Can you talk about the licensing required? What kind of Copilot license do we need? And is there any extra licensing required from Cocaine beyond the help desk V3 subscription? Okay, sorry. Okay, Tabitha, that's fine. So yeah, so it is an additional license. I'd have to turn that over to our sales team to have that discussion with you about the licensing component of the AI. From a Azure licensing component, so we're not yeah, we're leveraging the Azure AI Open Studio arena. And so what we've typically been working with our customers on is that they would set up the Azure piece of it so that they're controlling the subscription to it, they're controlling the how big that AI searched index gets, and also controlling the data, because that's a big part of it, is that we don't, you don't necessarily want your data to go outside and outside of your system. So if you want to keep it all self-contained and you have this set up in you have the system set up in your Azure environment, you can go ahead and get that going. Just to show you a little bit of what that looks like, because we tend to dive in a little bit in these workshops. I will dive in a little bit on that one. So let me go over to our administration tab here. And we're going to go into site settings and Nitro site settings. And give that a moment to come up. So you have your, see, where is it? AI connection settings, that's it. So essentially we have these different elements in Azure, and we're using our workflows and chunking up that information, right? So you have your KB list, your KB articles. Whenever they get updated or added, we'll have a workflow that will take that information, chunk it up so the AI can read it, and then that's going to go into your AI search index, and that's going to be named whatever you name it. It's going to have particular keys, particular endpoints. So you can see there's a key hidden here. Obviously, don't want to expose that, but this is essentially what we're saying is that these, we have an Azure OpenAI subscription, which is open to anyone who has, Microsoft. They can set that up, and then you can just take those components and take that information, plop it into here, and that's what we're going to end up using, or that's what the Copilot's going to end up using to, get the answers, to auto-categorize, to do all the things we just talked about as far as the generation. So there's a little bit of setup on that side, but that's certainly something we can assist you with. If you end up licensed for the Copilot, we can help you get that all set up. And that's part of what we do. Yeah. So in addition to this stuff, I mean, we talked about some of the things that are coming out. The the creating KB articles from the existing tickets and things like that. We're just continuing to look at AI. How can we best use it? Really, it's about practical AI for us. We really want to give you a practical use case for it, not just have some flashy like, oh, cool, look at this, it can write you a bedtime story, or it can, to give you a recipe about this, which is cool. It's fine. I actually use ChatGPT all the time for things like that. But in a real like working professional scenario, you're going to want it to be grounded in reality, in your data, and it's going to be grounded in give you professional responses. So that's what we can do here with that control. A little more control than what you get with the general Copilot that Microsoft offers. As great as that is, it does have a broad base of information that might not be targeted to your end users, might not be targeted to your specific use case of the help desk, right? So this is really also expanding that out in the sense of like maybe that user doesn't have access to all the KB articles, but because we've taken that article and put it up into the AI search, it still can be used to generate a response to that end user about how to fix something, how to change a password, or whatever it might be. So there, and on the other side of it, there is that component. So you want to be careful about what you're putting up there to make sure it's not sensitive or not, something that's going to expose passwords or anything like that. So, but that's kind of the human side of it, where you have to have some sense of what you're putting up there and make sure it's not not something that shouldn't be seen by everyone. But yeah, if there are any other questions, I'm happy to field them in the questions box, or if you want to raise your hand, we can I'll unmute you and let you ask your question. And if you come up with something after the fact and want to reach out to us, feel free. We're always available. If you wanted to ask about the licensing for this Copilot component, reach out to our sales team at sales@crocanyon.com, and they'll be happy to work with you and talk to you about the system. I think there is, whatever version of help desk you're on, unless it's a really older one, there should be, I think there are ways you can add this into to existing help desk, but that's something we have to talk about have a conversation about that. But yeah, so I think that's about it. I appreciate everyone's time for coming on to do this workshop. And yeah, Krista, anything else?
Oh, thank you, James, for walking us through all of this today. I know I definitely learned a few things, so hope everyone else did as well. And like James said, appreciate you all joining us today. And if you have any questions, you want to dive into it further, just let us know.
All right, awesome. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Krista. Have a nice day.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone.